Welcome to Discovering the Law. My name is Lucy Rivera and I am the host of this program. This episode can be viewed at www.discoveringthelaw.com. Today we have a wonderful guest, Governor, City Councilor, Attorney Robert Jubenville.
Thank you for having me.
Attorney Jubenville, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Please tell us what made you decide to be in the Governor's Council. Why did you run for this position?
Well, the Governor's Council is, a brief history of it is it's one of the oldest elected bodies in the United States. It dates back to colonial times when the King of England used to appoint the Executive Council. And their job was to look after the governor that the king appointed to make sure he was doing what the king wanted. But when John Adams wrote the Constitution of Massachusetts in 1780, he thought so much about the idea that he created the Executive Council. It's become known as the Governor's Council in modern times. And their job was a check and balance on the powerful governor. And today in Massachusetts, the Governor's Council confirms all judicial appointments to the state courts of the Commonwealth. It approves all spending warrants of the Commonwealth. We vote on all notary publics and justices of the peace. And we certify all statewide elections. So those are basically our duties.
That is all-encompassing. What is the district you represent as a Governor's Council?
Well, the Governor's Councilors are 8. We are 8 of us throughout the state, and we represent the entire state, but we run from councilor districts, which are 5 state Senate districts put together.
Yes.
In the area I run from, I live in Milton, Mass., and I run from mostly Norfolk County, from northern Bristol County towns and cities, and Middlesex, southern Middlesex. There are 40 towns I run from, including West Roxbury, Hyde Park, and Rosendale, in the city of Boston.
Very interesting. And how long is your term, your tenure?
All Governor's Council terms are 2 years, like a state representative or a state senator.
And you need to go to these meetings to have a voting record. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the governor calls us into session, and usually we come into session every Wednesday, and the governor will ask us to vote on judicial nominees that he has nominated, and do our other duties. So usually on Wednesday we meet. When we're not having a session with the governor, then we are having hearings on people that have been nominated for these very important positions, and we get to ask them questions and do investigations on them and decide whether or not we should vote for them.
Interesting. And how long have you been there as a councilor?
I've been there over about a year and a half on the Governor's Council.
And what do you look for in all these nominees? For instance, if when there is a nominee for a judgeship, what do you look for in these candidates to vote for them?
Well, I look for, obviously, qualifications and experience. I also look for temperament, what kind of temperament people will be if they sit on our benches. I also do question people that know these nominees to get some background on them, and then I ask them questions at the hearing. To me, it's one of the major qualifications is to be a good listener. Because as you well know, Lucy, people go to court and they want to tell their story to a judge.
Yes.
And the worst thing that can happen is judges that don't listen to people and cut them off. Then they leave and they don't feel they have had justice or the judge cared about them. So that's very important to me.
Yes. How do you determine their temper and these key characteristics that you're looking for?
Well, I ask people that know them about the candidates and what kind of dispositions they have. And I like to meet with them in my office at least for a few hours and ask them certain questions and see how they answer them. And, you know, I've been a lawyer for 35 years, and I've gone to every court in the Commonwealth, every superior court. I've been over 10,000 times before judges and clerk magistrates, so I get a good feeling about somebody one way or the other when I interview them and I ask them questions as to what kind of a judge they'll make.
Very interesting. Attorney Jubenville, do you have to be a lawyer to be in the Governor's Council?
No, you do not. There's no qualifications other than being resident of the Commonwealth for 5 years, and there's no age limit. Anybody can run for the office.
And how many members are there in the Governor's Council?
There are 8 members of the Governor's Council, and the Lieutenant Governor is a member of the council when the Governor chairs the council. When the Governor is unavailable to chair it, then the Lieutenant Governor steps out of the council and chairs the meeting.
And so the chair of the council is the Lieutenant Governor.
When the Governor is unavailable. And when the Lieutenant Governor is chairing the meeting, he cannot vote because he's not a member of the council. But when the Governor comes in to chair the meeting, then the Lieutenant Governor can step back into the council and he can vote, which would make it 9 votes, so he can break a tie if there is a tie.
And can the Governor vote?
The Governor is not a member of the Governor's Council and cannot vote.
Okay, and the Lieutenant Governor breaks the tie.
He can break the tie if the Governor is available to come and chair the meeting. If the Governor is out of state, then the Lieutenant Governor can't come back into the council.
Very interesting. Tell us, other than the judgeships, did you also say clerk magistrates? What other?
Yeah, we also confirmed clerk magistrates that are appointed to the district court, are nominated by the Governor to be the clerk of our district courts. We have, I think, about 74 district courts, and they each have a clerk. And the clerk's duties are to make sure all the records are kept and things are jotted down on the docket sheet, so there's a record of everything that happens in a courtroom.
Yes.
And they're very important positions.
Very important. So are judges, and are judges' positions forever?
They used to sit for life, and that was also John Adams's idea, because he felt that if judges didn't sit for life, they would be fearful of making very sensitive decisions that the public may not agree with, and had asked to have them removed. So Adams wanted them to be free of that and to be able to make fair but unpopular decisions. And they used to sit for life. About 20 years ago, there was a constitutional amendment, and it was moved back, so judges now have to leave at the age of 70.
Very good. Now, can a judge be removed?
Judges can be removed. What happens is, usually what happens is somebody makes a complaint to the Judicial Conduct Commission. They hold hearings and they make a recommendation. They make it to the Supreme Judicial Court. But the only people that really can remove a judge are the state representatives. A bill has to be filed, a bill of address it's called, to remove a judge from sitting, and that judge would have a right to have a trial in the state Senate. So the senators would be like a jury, and they would vote whether or not he should be removed, and then it would go to the Governor, and then in the end the Governor's Council would have to vote yes or no as to that removal.
And so why did you want to be in the Governor's Council? I know I asked you this, but what I'm trying to get at is what have you done to improve the lives of the citizens in Massachusetts?
Well, a lot of citizens, I found out, didn't know a lot about the Governor's Council, and they didn't know who their Governor's Counselor was. So I have been pressing that issue and trying to get more people involved in what the council does by publicity and giving speeches and writing things in the newspaper to bring attention to the Governor's Council, because I think it's a very important political position. You know, every day some 20,000 people pour into our courts in the Commonwealth, and a judge sits on the benches and makes decisions on their lives, and those decisions can affect people forever. So it is very important, in my opinion, to make sure only the best sit on our benches as judges to protect the citizens of the Commonwealth.
Yes. Now that's what all of you in the City Council look for.
The Governor's Council,
the Governor's
yes.
Councilor.
We all come from different backgrounds, and there are 4 lawyers presently on the council, but people come and bring their own experiences to the council, and they vote the way they they think is right. And sometimes we don't always agree, but that's what democracy's all about.
And do you enjoy it?
I enjoy it very much. I enjoy going to the meetings. I enjoy having hearings on nominees. And I've taken a lot of time when I interview candidates for these important jobs. And I don't, unless I think they a reason why they shouldn't sit on our benches, I vote no. They have to convince me beyond a reasonable doubt that they are going to be a good judge and treat the people of the Commonwealth in a good and fair way.
Mm-hmm. It's very important, and I agree with that. So how many hearings have you had so far as a governor's council?
We've had total hearings. I think we've approached about 71 total hearings. We've had about 42 hearings for judges and clerk magistrates of our court system. What happens is somebody comes, we set a date for a hearing, they are interviewed by all of the counselors, and then either 2 or 3 weeks later there's a vote called and we vote on these nominees. So we've been very busy. The governor has been very busy in nominating people to all of these positions.
Mm-hmm. Now, the governor's council is an elected position, and the districts seem to be, like you say, it's not very famous, or it's not very common to hear about these elected positions. How many districts are there?
There are 8 districts throughout the state, and in the Constitution it says that there are 40 senators, so they divide the state up into 8 districts. So there are 5 Senate districts put together, state Senate districts, and they are very large. They're bigger than a congressional district. Like I said, there are over 40 towns that I represent in the Commonwealth, that I get voted on in the Commonwealth, and parts of the city of Boston. So they are very large districts.
And it's very challenging to spread the word on such a big territory.
Oh, yeah.
What can you share with us about that experience?
Well, it is a very big district, and the only thing we can do is make sure that when we speak to citizens about the council, we inform them of what we do and the importance of it. And usually when you tell people the importance of judges, they agree that it is a very important elected position. There's no question about it.
Today we have Governor's Counselor, Attorney Robert Jubenville, as our guest in this program. And you are watching Discovering the Law. Attorney Jubenville. So tell us a little bit more, and can you practice law while you're doing your duties as a governor's counselor?
Yes, you can. This is a part-time elected position. So like I said, we usually meet every Wednesday. So I keep that day open, but the rest of the week I can practice law, and I go to courts all over the Commonwealth, and I get to see whether the judges I voted on or voted yes on are doing a good job. And if they don't, I tell them about it.
So is there this is an official review that you do for the...
Well, it's not an official review, it is my own review. Since I'm in these courts a lot of times, lawyers and court personnel will tell me about a judge or how they're doing or how they're treating the people. And if they're getting bad reviews, I usually say something to the judge just to let them know that I know.
So how can the people in your district reach you, or the people of Commonwealth? How can they reach you?
They can call the State House, the Governor's Council office, and leave a message for me there. Or they can reach me on email. It's jubenville@comcast.net. But the best way is to call the State House, ask the operator for the Governor's Council chambers. They will direct you to the personnel that work in the Governor's Council offices. And they'll take down messages or refer you to my line, and you can leave a message there. And I answer all my calls.
Very good. So now we know how to reach you,
Yes.
Attorney Jubenville.
Yeah.
So tell us step by step. Describe to us a little bit more. What are the duties of the council? It's fascinating how you can, because of you can elect judges or not elect them. It's an interesting process.
It is. And what happens is, if somebody wants to become a judge, they fill out an application. It's a very extensive application. It's about 40 pages. And they file it. And governors, since Governor Dukakis, have appointed what they call the Judicial Nominating Committee. and the applications are sent to the Judicial Nominating Committee. They screen them, they hold hearings, and if they pass the people on for these nominations, they then have to go to the Joint Bar Association of Massachusetts for approval, and then they finally get sent to the governor as being approved by these other committees. But the last step after the governor nominates is to go to the governor's council. And John Adams did that for a purpose. He wanted the citizens of the Commonwealth, through their elected counselors, to have the last say in who should judge us. And governors over the years haven't liked some of the votes of the governor's council, so they always talk about trying to get rid of it. But Adams was pretty smart. He knew that governors would do that, so he made it very difficult to get rid of the governor's council. He wanted that check and balance on a powerful governor, because without us, the governor would nominate somebody, and that would be it. There'd be no check and balance. So we are the last review of people for these very, very important positions in the Commonwealth. So I take my position very seriously.
It's historic. He made it so difficult, and why? How is it difficult, or can you?
Well, it's part of the state constitution of Massachusetts. It's a constitutional office. So when you open the Constitution and you read it, you'll read about the governor and the governor's council. So in order to get rid of the governor's council, there would have to be a change of the state constitution, which is very difficult to do. And he didn't want people changing that constitution. So it takes a vote of a constitutional convention for 2 years in a row, and then another 2 years after that. So it would take about 6 years of votes, and then the people of Massachusetts would have the final vote. Extremely difficult to get rid of a constitutional office.
Very good. And it serves its purpose. Do you think it's a useful body? You're part of it. But what have you seen as to other colleagues? Is that something that's benefiting?
I think it's very useful and very important. There's been criticism of the Governor's Council over the years, like they're a rubber stamp, or they should be abolished. It's an old council, and it's seen its day. And my answer is, well, it's no older than the governor's appointment or the state senator's appointments or state reps. And it serves the purpose it did then, now. And to do away with that right would give the governor carte blanche to nominate anybody they wanted, and no check and balance, because the Judicial Nominating Committee is all appointed by the governor. He can remove them at will, so there's really no process to be independent when you are screening these candidates other than the Governor's Council.
And Attorney Jubenville, what makes you qualified to be in the Governor's Council?
Well, I'm a veteran. After I got out of the Army, I went on the state police. I went to court when I was on the state police, and I've been a practicing lawyer now for 35 years. I don't think anybody on the council has been before more judges and clerk magistrates than I have over my tenure as a lawyer. And God willing, I'll practice till I'm 87 and continue to go to courts and still be on the council. And make sure that I take a lot of time and reflection on the votes I give. I don't treat this job lightly. I think it's a very serious position. I don't vote just because the governor wants me to vote. I vote one thing only, whether I think this person is going to be good for our court system and the citizens of the Commonwealth. If I don't think so, they don't get my vote.
And so you see, now that you've appointed, you've been part of the process in helping those judges get in the bench from the different, what are the different levels that these judges fill positions for?
It is every judge in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, state judge. We have juvenile judges, probate court judges, land court judges, district court judges, probate judges that handle family law and divorce cases, superior court judges, which is what is called the trial court. Superior court is one of the oldest courts in the United States, And the judges sit there and they deal in very serious cases, like murder cases or serious civil cases. And they're usually in our superior courts, these big, beautiful courtrooms. But the Massachusetts Appeals Court, there's judges that we have to confirm for that. And the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, which is the highest court in Massachusetts. In fact, the governor has just nominated somebody to be the new Chief Justice of the Supreme Judicial Court, which is the highest position of any judge in the state. So we will get to interview this judge that he's nominated and do our investigation. We're having a hearing on May 21st in the State House for this very important position. And I invite you and all of the members of the citizens of the Commonwealth to come into that hearing. It's open to the public. You have a right to come in, you have a right to speak, you have a right to have us ask questions for you to this nominee. So it's every judge in Massachusetts.
That's very interesting. Do you feel that the judges should be a process of appointment by the governor or an election?
I would be against an election of judges in the states that have them, and I've practiced law in some of those states. They're very troubling in the sense that they are money driven. They have to run for office, they have to raise money. So you can imagine if you went to court with a lawyer and the other side had a lawyer, but that lawyer gave the maximum amount to the judge in a campaign contribution and your lawyer didn't give any. You would somehow feel maybe your lawyer wouldn't get as good a decision as the one who gave all the money. So there's a lot of problems with the money raising and who gives to judges when they run. And the other problem with elected judges is, I have found, usually they're like a 6-year term, but for the first 3 or 4 years, they're fine. Then they've got to get reelected. So all of a sudden, they start throwing everybody in jail. So they get the press that they were real tough on crime, and they get reelected. So I don't think that's a good system, and John Adams didn't either. The federal government appoints judges for life because they took it from the state of Massachusetts. And that's what Adams thought was the best approach, that judges wouldn't run for election or get involved in money, that they would sit virtually for life as long as they maintain good behavior, and they could make decisions based on what they thought was fair without worrying about being removed.
Now, and you would find a conflict of interest when judges have their positions and they're unable to fundraise in Massachusetts. Can you talk to us a little bit of the ethics involved with that judgeship?
Oh, it would be quite frankly a nightmare if judges had to run for election and raise money. All kinds of ethical issues come into play. Who can give to judges? Most of the time it's going to be lawyers that appear before these judges. Right away you've got a conflict of interest, at least the perception of it for the public. And the perception wouldn't be good. This way we don't have to worry about that. And there's been criticism that judges shouldn't sit for life. And I suppose you could have judges sit for a 10-year period or something and then move on. But the way we have it now works pretty good most of the time. It's worked this way since 1780 pretty well.
Well, Attorney Jubenville, thank you for your time, and we're very grateful that you could donate this space to us, and we're proud of the work you're doing for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and thank you for coming and being our guest today.
It's been my pleasure, and thanks for having me.
And for our viewers, this has been an episode with Governor's Counselor Robert Jubenville, who is an attorney for 35 years. You can watch this episode again at www.discoveringthelaw.com. And my name is Lucy Rivera, and I am your host. Thank you for watching.